How do you manage locations of your products in a store or warehouse? I'm going to be sharing how we organize our locations, our location cheat sheet, and why we put our location number before the SKU, which I don't think is a very normal thing to do, which creates new problems, which we solve in different ways. And so I'm going to share this playbook here, which is our SOP, and I'll talk about location tilde SKUs. So we add some numbers to the front of our SKU to show where they're located in the store. If a vendor SKU is HN2001 and the location is aisle 1, shelf 5, rack 1, shelf 5, box 1, 11501, we separate the two with a tilde because to our eye, it looks like a dash. But for the computer, we're able to cut it off and separate it when we want to order SKUs from the vendors, because that is how we typically order product from vendors, is by saying we want 10 of the HN2001s. So it ends up looking like that number right there, the location number, tilde, and SKU. If a vendor does not have a SKU, we make one, and typically we try to be creative, right? The Climbing Taiwan sheepskin gloves that are white medium. It is more or less the acronym for it, and then we just put the SKU. And if that is at aisle 1, rack 2, shelf 5, it's going to be 125-01. So this is kind of where it lives. Our dash means there is a box for it, or a pegboard for it, or something. And if we're talking about a shelf system and it has an X, that means it is not in a box. But wait, it gets more confusing. D is display, or our pegboards. And so 34C, column 34, row C, a little X here means that it's in the back. We don't use this very often. It is for rare things that people buy. We have 2 or 4 of them, and they fit nicely in a way that doesn't just get lost in a box, because if you have tiny things, they get lost in a box. Now, I will show you at our store where we actually keep everything, but the SKU location cheat sheet is basically D is for display or pegboards, R is for the spool room, it's the rack or row. The LZ is the loading zone. If it's on a rack, there's a rack number. If it's just like free floating in there, it's just LZ. 0.5 is between 2 different boxes. X means there's no box for it. And the brackets means there's a second location. So you would have, I'll show you an example here. W means wall, and L means in the kitchen, the library. And the end of location is the tilde, of course. The complex example would be display 51, column F. But then if you have a dash in these brackets, that means it's in the loading zone, rack 3, and it's not in a box. And then you have your SKU. And so you have these 2 locations in front of a SKU. And it actually isn't too bad to read. And I'll show you on the phone here before I even go to the store, a screen recording of what I'm seeing. And this is a Shopify thing. And if you see my tour of Shopify and how that works, it is, Shopify is hard to work with. They're trying to be useful to many different types of stores, and they end up being not extremely useful for any particular one. And so you kind of have to mold it and form it into your own thing, and there's an app for freaking everything. And so we use some apps, and it's still more convenient to put our location in front of the SKU. Here's another example with spool room, the rack 9, the 3rd spool down, and it's also in the back. There are spare spools. And 0.5 means it's between 2 other boxes, these boxes here. Another example would be W, or wall, 100-01. That means it's between the aisles, and those are going to be our tall, obnoxious stick clips. Now, if I'm on my Shopify app and I click inventory, you can see that all the SKUs are here, and this is in descending order. But 820 for the Pinch-04 is typically where they are. Right now, they're back ordered. And you can see the tilde. So I don't have to literally go anywhere else to find that bin location, because typically you would have to go and find the metadata that it is in, and I don't want to do that necessarily. If I want to find the giant tortoise right there, 32902, it's also in the overstock bucket number 22. There's a bucket back there named 22. You can click this and you can change the available items. And if you have a second location, then we can put that. Right now, it's the overstock bucket is in the actual store, so we don't change the location right now. But when we actually have a storage shed, this is where we could have a specific inventory for each one, and those are the 2 locations. So if I want to change it, all I have to do is click that, and then I can change it to 3, or I can get rid of it entirely. Let's say we have got rid of all the excess and it's only living in 32902, and then I can hit save. And I'm not going to hit save. 3 right dots, scan. When you go to not easy scan anymore, but scan picker, you can scan in orders. So let's go to orders. So I go to an unfulfilled order that I need to fulfill. I click check, and they ordered some sleeve bolts. So 14902, also in the overstock bucket 29. And if I want to change that, what's nice about this app, they custom changed it for us so we can actually mess with our SKUs, is you can go in there and you can alter that. Now, if you wanted your bin location in a metadata, you could, and you could use apps that bring that piece of metadata up in front of your face so you didn't have to go hunting for it. But the SKU is so easily accessible by everything within Shopify, including fulfilling orders. You can see here just from the page that you fulfill the order that it has all the SKU numbers on here. So we instantly know where the locations are because it's literally the first piece of information we get. Now I'm going to walk you through the warehouse and kind of show you more or less everything I just told you. Welcome to aisle 300, rack 20, shelf 3, box 4. And that's what you see when you see 323-04. And that's how you know that this, which has that number associated with it, lives in that box. And our other videos, Chaos Storage Theory, and why we don't have all the same stuff in this box or similar items. Definitely don't want similar items in there. But every aisle like this is 700, rack 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the shelves, and the boxes. And so you can have something different like these blue boxes, which I don't recommend. And then you can have the cardboard version, which I do recommend. And it works. And that keeps everything organized. But what happens when you don't have a shelf, but you have a display? Well, the cheat code to this is D. D39, A, B, C, D. And if you're really feeling spicy, you can put X behind it under our SKU location system. And X means it's the thing behind it. And it's the stuff that almost never sells. You got 2 of them and you want to put it on a peg, but you want to just bury it behind this other item. Technically, you just doubled your pegboard locations or options by putting the little X. In our spool cutting room, you have R1, R2, R3, R4, and that is how we do our locations in here. And so you have R4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And when you have 2 ropes right next to each other, they're not the same, so you know what you're doing, and you've got to scan it before you use it. So that's the rope room system. Tall things go on the wall, and this is aisle 700, and this is the second box out of 1, 2, 3. And so you have that type of axe, that type of stick clip, and that type of axe as well. LZ rack 1, loading zone rack 1, 01, 02, 03. Those are the shelves. Loading zone rack 2. And this is the second rack, our third rack, and we got other racks over there. 332-02.5 is half between there and 0.3 for things that don't quite fit inside of a box. And so we put long stuff in between boxes because in here, there's an axe on this side, but if there's nothing in between, you have that much space with the way we've got this set up. And so that is the SKU location is 0.5. This is 8303, but this is 830X. There's no box, so you just put X. And that's how you know it's loose versus in a box. What's the best place for books is the library. And so you got L1, L2, L3, and that's where you have one type of book, second type of book, other type of book. That's where we keep the books. So we have a ton of these neck lanyards for top rope soloing, so many that we just don't need that many here. At some point, we might want to move this to a second location to where we have maybe 20 of these in a box, and then the rest of them would live in a second location. For right now, kind of the loading zone's a little full, but let's say we had a storage shed or an absolute, like a different location entirely. Well, we put that in brackets. So we put a dash, we put brackets, and then we put whatever that other SKU location is next to it. So when you see brackets, you know that that item lives in 2 different places. And in our Shopify now, we actually have them separated. So you know that 20's in that bin and 120 are in the other one, and that both of those are in our SKU location. These videos are primarily made for our team, but hopefully by making them public, they will help somebody who's using Shopify or just learning how to do workarounds for businesses that they have. It's not always straightforward like you want. Now, I'm sure other software has other solutions, but more oftentimes than not, you got to do a little workaround on any software solution. So we have business, media, and retail playlists on this behind the scenes channel. You can check out the ones you are interested in. Thanks for watching. Cheers.